colleagues. Ms. Kamish Ahmad, are we okay to start?
Chairperson, we are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A warm welcome to all the colleagues present, to the committee members, the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, the Secretary of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, as well as officials and members of the public. Welcome to the Parliamentary Oversight Committee meeting of Friday, the 29th of November. My name is Gillian Postman and I'm the chairperson of this committee. I'm now going to ask members of the committee to please introduce themselves for the record.
I'm
Thank you,
Benedicta.
Chairperson.
I'm Benedicta van Minnen. I am a member of this committee. Thank you.
I'm Member Boyson. I'm an alternate member and I'm standing in for Member Bryant.
Good afternoon, Chair. Wendy Kaiser-Philander, committee member.
Good afternoon, Chair. Rachel Windvogel, standing in for Member Barnes.
Thank you very much, members. Shall we go over to the WCPP members, starting with the Speaker?
Good afternoon, Chairperson, colleagues. Taylor Mitchell, and I'm the Speaker of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and members. Regan Allen.
Good afternoon, Chairperson, members and colleagues. Romeo Adams, Secretary to the Western Cape Provincial Parliament.
Afternoon, Chairperson, colleagues and members. Margot Goldstone, Director, Strategy and Institutional Oversight.
Good afternoon, members and colleagues. Chairperson Sunal Fouchier, Public Engagement.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and members. Nicole Peterson, Chief Financial Officer.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Lubabalo Stemele, Director, Parliamentary Support Services.
Good afternoon, James Retief, Manager, Stakeholder Management and Communication Services.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Ridwan Babu, Manager, Knowledge Management and Acting Director, Institutional Enablement.
Good afternoon, Chair. Dawo Jawdin, Manager, Finance.
Good afternoon, Chair. Temba Kesa, PEO.
Good afternoon, Chair. Usman Alexander, Supply Chain Management.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Zinzini Gallo, Manager, Financial Compliance and Internal Control.
Good afternoon, Carolyn Prakasam, People Management.
Good afternoon, Andre Leroux. Good afternoon, Andre Leroux, Legal Advisor.
Good afternoon, Genevieve Ackham, Manager in the Office of the Secretary.
Good afternoon, Lerica Elliott, Speaker's Office.
Good afternoon, members and colleagues. Yanni Ace, Speaker's Office.
Chairperson, then we do have an apology for Mr. Vernon Titus. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before the Secretary, I also heard very faintly Mr. Doman also introduced himself. Colleagues, we've received two apologies, one from a member Dave Bryan and one from Ms. Ayanda Barnes. Member Windvogel is standing in for Member Barnes and Member Boyson is standing in for Member Bryant. Colleagues, we are here to discuss the Western Cape Appropriations Bill dealing with Vote 2 of the Provincial Parliament. I'm looking at a digital copy of the Blue Book. And members might have the physical copy in front of them. But on my copy, Vote 2 starts on page 19. But before we go on, I'm going to ask the Speaker and Deputy Speaker and then the Secretary if they'd like to make any opening remarks.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, am I audible?
Yes, you were audible and you were also visible earlier.
Can you see me now?
In living color, yes, we can.
All right. Thank you very much, Chairperson and colleagues. I'm not going to take a lot of time because I think we can get straight into the budget. But Chair, it would be remiss of me not to say that the adjustment estimates, in particular when pertaining to vote 2, is against the backdrop of a severely constrained fiscal environment. Chairperson, the WCPP is currently busy with a new strategic plan that will be tabled soon that will set out the plan for the next 5 years for the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. But I want to give the committee from the onset the assurance or reassurance that with the resources at our disposal, we will continue to embrace innovation, modernization, and to ultimately be a parliament that is credible, not only to the members of parliament, but also to the citizens that we are elected to serve. Chair, before I hand over to the Secretary to take us through the details of the adjusted figures in the budget, I just want to highlight the fact that the WCPP's budget has decreased by 63 million rand, which includes the direct charges, leaving the WCPP with an adjusted appropriation of 258.07 million, an amount of 5.754 million in respect of underspending on the voted funds, and an amount of 747,000 in respect of rollover from collected own revenue from the 2023-2024 financial year into the MTEF. Chairperson, and then the rollovers for 2023-2024 was mainly allocated to Program 1 under governance, 6 million from the previous financial year for projects that was committed but that we did not complete in the 2023-2024 financial year. The same for Program 2 under Parliamentary Support Services of 65,000 rand that was rolled over but was not completed, and then under Public Engagement also for projects that were committed and not completed. Chairperson, with that in a nutshell, I look forward to a robust engagement as always with the Parliamentary Oversight Committee, and we are ready to field any questions and concerns that you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Mr. Secretary, over to you.
Chairperson, thank you, and thank you to the Speaker. Chairperson, I have no further introductory comments. I think we can go straight into the adjustment estimates. Thank you, sir.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Members, with that said, I'm now going to table for discussion vote 2, the Western Cape Provincial Parliament in the schedule to the Western Cape Adjustments Appropriation Bill B2 of 2024. As I said earlier in the Blue Book, we are dealing with pages 19 to 35. I'm now going to open the floor for questions to both the Speaker, the Secretary, and the colleagues online. If members can indicate whether they have any questions by raising their hands. I see Member Windvogel. Member Windvogel, you may go ahead.
Am I audible, Chair?
You are audible, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chair, and good afternoon once again, Speaker and his team, and yourself, Chair. Chair, the decrease of the 63 1,000 is noted with serious concern. And our legislature cannot afford such budget cuts, especially given that staff members are already overburdened with too much work. And we had hoped for an increase in allocation to better support their work. What will be, I want to understand what will be the impact of this reduction, and how does the Speaker and his team plan to navigate these challenges moving forward? It is critical that the legislative body is adequately resourced to fulfill its duties effectively, and we seek clarity on how this decrease will be managed without compromising service delivery. Then, yeah, let me park there for now, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, I was going to say go ahead. Honourable Speaker, Mr. Secretary, over to you.
Chairperson, Speaker, if I may go, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm maybe just going to ask the CFO and Mr. Jawadin just to explain the decrease, and then we can deal with the where it has an impact. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Secretary, Chairperson. The decrease of 63,000 is sort of a balancing effect. We had some projected underspending in this financial year, mainly based on vacant posts that we've had. And as we've completed our budget, we've already recognized that we would have needs next year. So we've taken some of that underspend in this year over into the next financial year. So we didn't decrease our budget. These are savings that were already realized based on the 6 months of the year that have already passed and where posts weren't filled. So we merely supplemented our budget for next year during this adjustments estimate to alleviate what pressures we would have for next year.
Thank you very much for that response. Member Van Vogel, I see your hand again.
It was a legacy hand, Chair, but if there's no one else, I will continue. I'm not sure if there's a hand before me because that was a legacy.
No, you are the star of the show, Member Van Vogel. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I also want to understand on page 19, table 2.1. I missed I'm not sure who answered my question because I've lost some technical challenges here with connectivity. But I want to understand what consideration were made in the decision to cut the budget for these critical programs, including parliamentary support service, public engagement and member support, because these are essential areas that directly support the functioning of the legislature, and reducing their funding could impact the quality of service delivery and public engagements. Are you not concerned that these reductions will compromise the capacity of the institution both now and in the future? Then, secondly, Chair, we note, I think it's page 22, subprogram 1.45. When it comes to why is the budget for compensation of employees being used to refurbish the sixth floor? Why were these refurbishment not anticipated and therefore not budgeted for in the main budget? Additionally, on page 23, we observe a similar trend where the COE budget is being used to cover higher than expected, as well as increased government grants. So could you provide an explanation for why COE had to be used to cover these costs, and what are the reasons behind the higher than expected expenses in these areas? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Van Vogel. If I could maybe ask the 800,000 that is going to be reallocated in respect to static security services for the South African Police Service. Maybe if the Speaker or the Secretary can perhaps give us context as to whether this is a new expense. I don't remember seeing this in the budget before, whether the South African Police Service has started charging Parliament for a service that used to be provided as part of their budget. And then I'll hand over to the Secretary and the administration on those questions.
Chairperson, thank you very much. Maybe just to just again respond to the first question that Honourable Van Vogel had asked. Honourable Van Vogel, the 63,000 that looks like an underspend, or that looks like a reduction in the budget, it has been planned for use in future financial years, and therefore that will be then we will then be able to see that in the future or in the next financial year. With regards to the question related to compensation of employees, when every in-year monitoring meeting is held, managers are expected to confirm their expenditure year to date, but also to give indications of what are the projections going forward. That exercise for each of the programs, the sub-programs and the sub-programs, then result in us seeing where had we anticipated to spend money that we've not spent, and where do we anticipate spending money going forward. In terms of the compensation of employees, when vacancies exist within an institution, those vacancies are funded more often than not from the start of the financial year, but it is not spent. The compensation of employees are not necessarily spent from the start of the financial year. It depends on when the vacancy is then filled. From the start of the financial year until the date of the vacancy is filled, that then generates an underspend or a saving for the budget of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, that we are then permitted to see how we can use it for other priorities. The question on whether those other priorities were not funded from the start of the financial year, as is common across all the institutions, there are priorities that come on board during financial years. We then have an exercise in the Western Cape Provincial Parliament to see which of those priorities needs to be prioritized per se for spending and for implementation and for finalization, and whether we have savings or underspend to cover that. And those would more often than not be the scenarios. Chairperson, thank you. I don't know if Madam Peterson and Mr. Jawadin would want to add to that response. Thank you, sir.
Over to you, Mr. Jawadin. I see your hand.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Secretary covered me with regards to Member Van Vogel's question. Just to answer the question regarding the 800,000 that we're shifting regarding the static security services. So that is a expenditure which previously was not paid for by us. It was covered by SAPS. We initially identified internal savings to allocate an amount of 1.6 million in this financial year to cover for the static security services. The claiming from SAPS with regards to that expense has been a bit slow, so we have identified that we'll have at least an 800,000 saving in this financial year, which we will be rolling over as per the adjustment estimate and shifting into next year because of the fact that this was something we didn't budget for previously. There is no allocation in our budget for next year, and we are rolling over the 800,000 from savings of this year into next year. Through your Chair, I'm not sure if Mr. Dowman has any other feedback with regards to what that services entails and what the process was before. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. So, Chairperson, before Mr. Doman responds, just the following. So the invoices that we get and the charging from SAPS is not for services at the National Key Point in the 7 Wales Street building. It is for services outside of the National Key Point, whether it be committee work, whether it be our SOPAs, or whether it be other events. The honourable members would recall that we would previously have had services from POX and then also sometimes from SAPS for the work of Parliament outside of the parliamentary precinct. It is from the 2023-2024 financial year. The Divisional Commissioner from SAPS had issued correspondence that a decision was made that client departments at client institutions would have to pay for the services that we are now being invoiced for. Quotations are received upfront. We judge whether the deployment is reasonable and whether the costing is reasonable. Then there's the expectation that we then commit to accepting that specific quotation and they will invoice us afterwards. Chairperson, the Western Cape Provincial Parliament had sought to engage the National Commissioner or the relevant Deputy National Commissioner at National Office to engage on the rationale behind this, because these would have been services that would even have been previously delivered without us paying for it in instances, but they have now started to invoice, quote us and invoice us for those type of services. Thank you, sir. I don't know if Mr. Doman has any further adding to the response. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you, Secretary. The actual service, Chairperson, that we pay SAPS for.
Mr. Doman, your sound is very soft, and I'm struggling to hear you. Are you able to come?
Can you hear me now, Chair?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. I'm here at the office. Chair, yes, the actual service that we pay SAPS for is for services that they render in the actual venue. So we would request at the minimum 3 SAPS officers to be present, and then they assist with screening. The services that we normally request via the Provincial Commissioner, that is on the outskirts for visible policing, but we have identified that the need actually is at the venue, and that's why we are actually paying for the SAP services at the specific venue. We did recently, we had the Older Persons Amendment Bill, and we had SAP services at that different venues, and that services are requested before. And as the Secretary have indicated, we do assess if the costing that they present us, we do interrogate that costing and see whether it is feasible for that specific event. So thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Members, I'm looking around and I don't see any other hands. I see Member Van Vogel. Member Van Vogel.
Am I audible, Chair?
You are, but you are cutting out a little bit.
Yeah. Audible now. Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, I can.
Yes. Chair, mine is on page 24, subprogram 3.2. I want to understand the 806,000, which was originally earmarked to fill vacant posts, is now being redirected to cover additional costs related to the 7th Parliament and the State of the Province address. Could you provide further clarity on what these additional costs related to the 7th Parliament entails? And additionally, there is an allocation of 613,000 for SOPA. Is this amount intended for next year's SOPA? And if so, what justification justifies this significant expenditure? Why why is it necessary for SOPA to be held outside of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament especially given the current budget constraints. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Windvogel. SOPA is being held in Beaufort West, Member Barnes' constituency. It's interesting that you're asking that question while you're standing into Member Barnes. I'll hand over to the Secretary and the Speaker for responses.
Chairperson, I'm going to ask if Mr. Javadine can just assist us, and then I'll augment. I also don't know whether the Speaker would want to also add, but if I can ask Mr. Javadine to start, please.
Good, Chair, if I may. You, Chair, if I may.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so just to answer Member Van Gog's first question regarding the additional cost relating to 7th Parliament. So in the legislature, the sub-programs costing of items of the members' offices, for example, furniture and equipment, etc. We identified that the funding within the budget did not cover all the additional requirements with regards to the additional members in the 7th Parliament. So we had to make provision for the costing and the payment of additional furniture and furniture and equipment. So that's the amounts that we're covering to ensure that we cover for all of that, and we utilize savings from vacant posts to cover for that additional cost. Then just with regards to the 613,000 for SOPA, the answer to the question that yes, that is for the SOPA next year. I think it was the first part of the question. And I think the Secretary did answer the other part of the question, Chair. Or I think the other part of the question is with regards to the reasons for it being there. And I think the Secretary will possibly answer that question.
Chairperson, before the Speaker responds, maybe just the following in terms of the 7th Parliament. So just before we had concluded the 6th parliamentary term, as the administration, because of our experiences in the 6th parliamentary term, we had worked on a standard for offices for members of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. The additional spend was also partly due to implementation of those standards, so that there's a consistency in terms of the furniture and other tools that is provided for members within the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. The honourable members would see that roughly the offices of one party members are similar, and then obviously with multiple members there's a slight difference where the head of the party's office is a bit different from the other members, etc., and the positions that the members hold. Chairperson, I think the Speaker's hand is up for the question on why is SOPA outside of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament buildings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's quite straightforward. SOPA has been the opening of Parliament was, as the Honourable Member would know, has been spread across the different districts, and the initial opening of Parliament was held in the chambers, and because the Central Karoo and the people of Maritzburg and the people of Merweville and the people of Nelspruit has never had an opportunity to have Parliament, the opening of Parliament and members of Parliament in that district, the decision was taken to ensure, in the interest of transparency, accountability and openness, to take Parliament to the people of the Central Karoo, which stretches from Laingsburg right until the borders of the Western Cape, on both sides of Merweville, Maritzburg and Nelspruit. So that is the reason, Honourable Windvogel, because we leave no one behind, and the people of the Central Karoo is also part of the people of the Western Cape. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Speaker, Mr. Secretary, and Mr. Javadine for those responses.
Chair.
Member Windvogel.
May I, Chair?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Chair, I think it's not about Member Barnes or the people of Maritzburg or Beaufort West. My concern is we are sitting with a budget constraint. So that's my point of reference. You are telling us we have a problem when it comes to our budget. We are struggling to cope. That's the message that we are getting. So that's the issue. And I hope I hope that we are not going to sit with a full hall of mayors and speakers, and then the people of Maritzburg and the people of Beaufort is 10 people, and you have the whole mayors and speakers, because what happened in the previous where you do take Parliament to the people. That's actually what we encounter when these things happen. So if you are speaking about Maritzburg, we don't want only speakers and mayors and those ones, business people. We want the workers' class also to take part in this SOPA. But my issue was the budget constraints, Chair. Then lastly, Chair, if I may, the realignment of provincial budget. You mentioned something about 1.8 million. So it's concerning that over 1.8 million has not been spent, with the explanation being that savings were identified. Could you provide more detail informing on how these savings were identified? And additionally, why were these funds surrendered to the revenue instead of being reallocated to other critical programs that are in need of support? I'm just going to give you an example, Chairperson, and I'm happy the speaker is here. It's some of our committee members can't do their job because of budget constraint. They will tell you an alternative member can't sit in when you are going to Worcester or you are going to another town nearby because of budget constraints. We do have a role and responsibility, and it's our duty to do effectively oversight over the executive and hold them accountable. But if that's the way we are going to exclude members, how will we do our job of our response? How will we do and ensure that we are at least doing what is expected from us? So I really want to understand that, Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Member Van Vogel. I see the speaker's hand.
Thank you very much, Honourable Van Vogel. I completely understand your question with regards to the budget and the fiscal environment that we are dealing with. But I feel very passionate and strongly about the fact that we cannot put a limit and a fund and a number to public education, public outreach, and to put a price on democracy. And as part of the constitutional mandates of the WCPP, public engagement is important. And for that reason, the SOPA funding is money directly linked to our constitutional mandate. I do take your point about the local people, and as always, we try and maximize the allocated seats to local residents of an area when SOPA gets taken. But also, we need to be mindful that, like the public is a stakeholder to the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, municipalities, the diplomatic corps, and NGOs, and the civil society is also stakeholders. So it's trying to balance that guest list. But I do take your point. And then, if I may, Chair, on page 25, I think Honourable Van Vogel referred to the 1.8 million rand. I think it is clear in the Blue Book. The over R1 million was reallocated over the MTEF to supplement laptop refreshments, and as you know, that's part of the tools of trade, and as it reaches the end of their lifespan, that needs to be replaced. And with regards to the 800,000 that was also on the 1.8, I think it was answered previously, and that's related to the static security. I don't know if Mr. Jardine would like to.
Through your chair, if I may.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add on to what the speaker has mentioned, that's correct. But also to indicate to Member Van Vogel that 1.8 million is from underspending we had identified from this particular financial year. Again, I mentioned the fact that we had identified, and as the Secretary has mentioned, we identified that we will have an underspending on our budget this year because of vacant posts which were not filled. We had then identified because of the fact that our spending pressures in the outer years and the budget in the outer years were under strain. So we had taken a decision to utilize some of the savings on this year to alleviate some of that spending pressures, and that is where the 1.864 million comes from. As the speakers were mentioned, the 1.064 of that 1.8 is for the laptop refresh, which we identified we don't have sufficient budget for that over the 2 years outer years. We're making provision for that from this year's savings, and as mentioned previously, the other 800,000 is for the static security services. But also to mention to Member Van Vogel that funding, even though it's from savings from this year, it is being reallocated into our budget next year, and as per page 625, it has mentioned it's been reallocated into our budget, so we're not losing that money. A savings from this year that we identified that is being shifted into the MTF to sort of alleviating spending pressures where the budget in the out years is under strain. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for those responses. Member Van Vogel, I see your hand.
Yeah, Chair, I noticed of that the speaker or the secretary didn't touch on the issue, and it's very close to my heart. The fact that members are not able to fulfill their responsibilities because of budget constraints. So I want to understand that also when he touched on the outbreak and the SOPA taking the parliament to the people. So I want to understand that how did we get to that point? Because it's also a very important point of issue when it comes to members doing their oversight responsibility of their work. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I see the speaker and the secretary.
Thank you very much. My apologies, Member Van Vogel. I omitted to answer that question. I think this has come up in a previous Parliamentary Oversight Committee meeting, and I know that we have engaged on this previously. I mean, I'm very clear. All members of Parliament can attend any meeting or committee that they so wish. You do not need to be to be 80 seat for a committee. In the interest of doing your work, I mean, I do take your point, and absolutely, members are supposed to be able to attend any meeting, do oversight, if they so wish. I mean, in particular, we have one member of political parties in WCPP, and obviously, that particular member will only be 80 seat for the sake of voting rights on certain committees, but that does not prevent that particular member from attending any committee and having and to ask questions and do oversight in those committees. So, Honourable Van Vogel, I completely agree with you, completely take your point. And as I indicated, we've had this discussion in the previous Parliamentary Oversight Committee meeting already.
Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Speaker, and thank you for the question from Member Van Vogel. So, Chairperson and honourable members, we have increased over the years the budget that has been made available for, I think it was 1.8 million at the start of the 6th parliamentary term, and we've moved it right up to 3.5 as a basis. It is, however, or maybe before I get to that point, in the last year of the 6th parliamentary term, we had then made an additional 1.5 million rand available for committees in order for them to attend to the legislation that should be attended to. What we however ask is that a proper planning process be put in place, and chairpersons have assisted us with the planning of the work for committees so that we can assess the need for additional funds for committee work. we make commitments, we project overspend in some years, but more often than not, that overspend then translates into a saving on our side. So I think when we get the proper planning in place, Chairperson and honourable members, that should assist us with looking at what additional funding we should be making available for the work of committees and for members to participate in the work of committees. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, I see your hand.
Apologies, Chair. I think I just want to latch onto what the Secretary has said, and I can confidently, comfortably, and with conviction say that the baseline for committees will always be at 3.5 million rand, based on the programs and planning from committees. Our first thought of for any underspending, honourable members, is to see how we can strengthen the work of committees. And so in the absence of those programs or plan of action, we cannot anticipate any additional funding. But as a baseline and as a principle, you'll see it in the main budget too. Standing committees, the baseline will always be 3.5 million rand, and it's nearly doubled from where it started a year or two ago. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much to both the Speaker and the Secretary. And I just want to also say in support of the comment made by Member Van Vogel, the commitment that the Speaker has given that all members of the WCPP are allowed to attend meetings must also be communicated to the budget holders of committee services, so that there's no issue when members do indicate that they want to participate in oversight visits outside of the WCPP precinct. Colleagues, I don't see any other hands for the next round. So with that, I'm going to provide an opportunity for the Speaker and the Secretary, if they wish to do so, to make any closing remarks, so that we as members can go into the section where we can deliberate further. But before I do that, I just want to check, Ms. Kamish Ahmed, I don't have any indication from members of the public whether they've got any questions. Did you receive any?
No, Chairperson, no members of the public are present. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then I'll hand over to the Secretary and the Speaker for closing remarks.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, so we are attending to the adjustment appropriation matters for the Western Cape Provincial Parliament for the 2024-2025 financial year, the current financial year. As an administration, I think we have adequate controls in place to ensure that what we allocate at the start of a financial year is spent as we had committed. Sometimes, like I previously said, new priorities come on board, and then we have to make plans within the envelope, because additional funding are more often than not available for the spend and for those additional priorities that come on board. As an administration, we are committed to ensuring that the funds are spent for the intention for which it has been made available, and that we will continue to do within each and every financial year. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, any closing remarks from your side before we excuse you and the team?
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, honourable members, for the engagement today. Thank you to the Secretary, to you and the team for your participation and ensuring that we have this adjustment budget presented. And then lastly, Chair, to the members of the committee, thank you for the robust accountability and for the manner in which we could engage today. As always, Chair, like I said, unlike a government department, the Western Cape Provincial Parliament is a parliament of all 9 political parties. All members is actually the custodian of the WCPP. So I take the questions and the accountability from members very seriously, because ultimately it is our parliament, and I take it in the spirit that your interactions is to ensure that we better Parliament, to ultimately better serve the citizens that elected us to serve them. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker and the team from the Provincial Parliament, you are then excused, and we wish you all a pleasant Friday and a restful weekend. Members, if you could stay behind so that we can further engage in our deliberations.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Speaker
Chair.
and team.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chairperson, honourable members, colleagues. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
I don't know what's happening here.
I will tell you what's happening next, Member Van Vogel, to help you. I have pages in front of me telling me what's happening next, so I will guide the committee. Members, we are now going to put the question to the committee, and I'm going to ask Ms. Kamish Ahmad to just flight the draft committee report for the consideration of the committee. Ms. Kamish Ahmad, are we able to?
I am, Chair. Just give me a moment. The sharing option just like bombed out, so I need to just
While you do that, I will just read it into the record for now. So it will read the report of these. Yes, ma'am.
Before we flight it, the committee can first deliberate whether they support or not support, and then in that time I will just get the report ready. Thank you.
Perfect. Members, let me then ask the question. Does the committee support the vote? I see Member Kaiser Philander.
Chairperson, I wish to express my support for vote 2.
Thank you very much. I see Member Benedict van Menen.
And I second that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Member Van Vogel.
Yeah, Chair, I want to table the minority view in terms of Rule 19, and that the ANC rejects this budget and request that this position be formally recorded. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Van Vogel. So, members, the report of the Parliamentary Oversight Committee on Vote 2, Western Cape Provincial Parliament, in the schedule to the Western Cape Appropriation Bill B2 2024, dated 29 November 2024. The Parliamentary Oversight Committee reports that it considered Vote 2, Western Cape Appropriations, the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, in the schedule to the Western Cape Appropriation Bill B2, referred to it in accordance with Standing Rule 188, and that it supports the vote. In terms of Standing Rule 90, the African National Congress expressed its minority view that they do not support the vote. Members, that's then our report. Member Kaiser Philander, I see your hand.
I support the adoption of the report, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. So Member Kaiser Philander then proposes that we adopt the report, and I see Member Benedict van Menen.
Second that as well.
Thank you very much. The report is then duly adopted and will be forwarded for further processing. Members, shall we now then move on to resolutions? Are there any resolutions? If I could then read one into the record, we can just say that as per the meeting held of the Parliamentary Oversight Committee, it was resolved to inform all budget holders of the Speaker's commitment that alternate members of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament are permitted to attend meetings, oversight sessions and public hearings should they wish to do so, and must not be restricted by budget constraints. Member Van Voorhel, are you happy with that?
Yes, Chair. Amen to that.
I'm going to get a free bottle of wine from Member Van Voorhel before I leave the office. I don't see any other hands for any further resolutions, so we will then just record that. We will now then deal with the minutes of Wednesday, the 6th of November, 2024. And the page in front of you deals with attendance. And we went into the quarterly reports, annual report, and the draft committee quarterly report. And members would have received today all of those documents that we requested. Makes for some very interesting reading. And the meeting was then adjourned at 10:01. I think the only person that can propose this, the support of this minutes is myself and Member Van Minnen. And only myself and Member Van Minnen and Member Jacobs. See, Member Van Minnen, I see your hand.
Let me propose it then and support it.
Thank you very much. The minutes is then proposed, and since we don't need a seconder, it is then duly adopted as well. Ms. Kamish Ahmed, does that cover our business for today?
Yes, Chairperson. And I think our business for the year too. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Thank you very much for your contributions and cooperation in the second half of this year and the first part of the new Parliament. It is greatly appreciated. And thank you very much for all the support. A very special thank you to Ms. Wasima Kamish Ahmed for your procedural support, as well as to Ms. Mashupela for always making sure that the committee runs, and also to our colleagues in the ITDS department who make sure that we are able to broadcast this via YouTube and that members are adequately assisted with their IT equipment when they cannot connect. Members, if there's nothing else, the meeting is thus adjourned, and I hope you all enjoy your weekends and that you have a safe and peaceful weekend.
Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.